to this joint episode of Windowcast and GlassCast. We're broadcasting live from the bustling trade show floor at GlassBuild America in Orlando, Florida, where the fenestration and glass industry's best and brightest have gathered to showcase cutting-edge products and solutions. This episode is brought to you by our series sponsors, Dow, innovating for a sustainable future in building materials, and Lansing Building Products, your partner in quality building supplies. Thank you for your partnership. I'm Laurie Cowan, editor of Window and Door magazine. Today I have the pleasure of having this wonderful panel of experts together about machinery, technology, and automation. Right here beside me, we have Anthony Pigliocampo, CEO of Joseph Machine. Then we have Kim McGlinchey, Executive Vice President of Engineering and Research and Development at GED. Mike Biffle, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Sturtz, and Brian Ludwig, here on the very end, North American Sales Manager with Erdman Automation. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedules and being here this morning.
Absolutely.
So there is a lot to talk about in the machinery, automation, and software space. It's obviously a huge topic of conversation in our industry. And one of the things I wanted to start out today was talking about how there's really no one-size-fits-all approach to machinery and automation, and how it is all very custom. Mike, could you talk a bit about how to right-size machinery for your customers' facilities and really helping them find the custom solution that works for them?
What we see a lot of is there are different reasons people get into automation. One will be for a tight labor market, which we've seen in a lot of areas of the country. Another will be in an effort to improve overall efficiency in the plant and a consistent throughput where you're not relying on a person who may be tired today or injured today. And so when we go in and we speak with a customer, it's not only about what their overall production is, but also their product mix, what their challenges are with their labor force, and then looking at what makes the most sense for how they make their product. Everybody has kind of a different operating procedure when they get out on their plant floor, and so the goals that they have are different. So it has to be a consultative approach. You can't just walk in and say, "Oh, you make this window. This is what you need." And I don't know how the other guys here feel, but I think it's important to do a lot more listening than talking when you first engage and find out what a customer needs in their automation.
Yeah, agreed. What we often find is what they reach out to us wanting and what they end up actually purchasing are two completely different things. And the complexity of their specific window systems and how they make it, and even the sizes that they make, can often make certain types of automation work really well or actually be terrible fits. And so one of our jobs with our team is to help them understand that and say, these are the areas where automation can actually achieve your goals, but then these are the areas where they're not, because it's very easy to be a hammer in search of a nail and have these crazy automated solutions, and we can sell them to them, but they won't actually make their product or their operations better.
Yeah, I agree, Anthony. I think the big challenges is, are they a startup? Are they, a large producer of windows? And certainly if they're a young company and low volume, we want to give them stepping stones to get them where they need to be with low production level of equipment. But at the same time, something they can reuse later down the road and preserve their assets as they go forward. So I think giving a product offering from, small, medium, large, as far as offerings go, is something that I think all of us have to do to meet the needs of our customers.
So there's a lot of consulting going on in the space when you have a customer who comes in, or a customer who might want to upgrade or improve upon what they already have.
I agree.
Yeah, and kind of coming a little bit further with what Anthony was saying, we have a customer now we're working with. When they came to us, they wanted full automation. That was what they wanted. They were sure that was the best thing for them. And we got into it, and they've got 8 different product lines they want to run through the same machine and achieve all this automation. It's like, well, that's not the best way to do it. And as we go through it, it's back, and now we're at a very simple machine, like you were saying, Anthony. And having that basis to build stepping stones so that they can use that same machine when they automate later to Tim's point, that's our job. We have to help educate the customers because, especially someone coming from another industry, they see automation, are like, oh, that's, they're used to automation. They think it's the best way to do it, but they haven't worked in our industry before when there are so many variations to every product.
That I think is the real challenge in fenestration, is that you'll have a lot of the large companies, or even the smaller ones, they'll hire a new plant engineer that came from automotive, and their frame of mind is lights out, dark factories and things that they were doing in these other industries, and they see a square and they think, oh, this will be very easy, but what they don't anticipate is every square is different, and every configuration of every square is different. And so that's actually a really big challenge for automated solutions. And so you have to really choose your battles wisely. And I mean, I'm sure all of us have seen and probably sold in solutions to customers where we go in a few years later and they're either using part of the automated solution and they've turned some features off, or it's completely mothballed and they've gone back to the basics. And part of it is, these squares are incredibly difficult to make. Yeah. So I think the reason why there's not 50 companies doing what we all do is because it's actually quite difficult. I think it's a very unique industry from an automation standpoint in that respect.
Yeah, that's a super great point, because you're right. One of the things that we find that we're trying to address too is some of this automation. You're right, we've gone in, we've sold it, cycle time, oh yeah, it works great, and then we go back and you're right, they've turned off the one part. And so we found going back in and having to do retraining because they are so installed into what they've been doing. Even if we've explained it 100 times, you do it this way, this is the cycle time you get, this is the productivity you get, you still, they get one person or one group leader or one floor leader that's frustrated, and you're right, you come back and it's just sitting there dark. So that's a big challenge I think that we all face too, is not only making the machinery and finding the solution, but also helping them take ownership of it and actually do it the way it's proposed. Right, and I think that's another thing that we're dealing with.
And we'll see that variation you're talking about in training with first shift versus second shift.
Exactly.
And the product mix might be different on the first shift for the second shift, so you'll see sometimes more complex variations being run by their first shift and maybe more bread and butter on the second shift because of the complications and the training and things of that nature. But I think the bottom line is there's a lot of variation. Yeah. Even though it all looks like a window, it looks like a door, the variations, the complexities, the permutations, the amount of SKUs we have in our industry is extremely high.
Yeah, agreed.
A square in the window industry is not the same as a square in other industries, is what I'm hearing.
Not even close.
All right. Now, Brian, one of the things that you spoke about was how to keep that machinery running and the training and essentially giving ownership to the customer. How can machinery companies help give that ownership back to the customer after you set up the machine and do the initial training?
So one of the things is even if you've got great install team and they're helping the customer through it and you've done the training and you've gone in, a lot of the automation that is coming, and as we keep getting a little bit more complicated, doing a little bit more complicated things, the handoff is also something that we've realized we've got to keep our eye on as well. So one of the things that we found that is helping and that we're integrating is something that we're calling Erdman Connect, where we're actually able to have, even at the operator level, where they've got checks for the machinery, so that each day can be repetitive. Because what some of our customers are finding is even at their operator level, right, they're getting tons of turnover. And so we trained all the guys that were there, or the guys and gals that were there when we installed the machine. Then they cycled through, they've got a new one, they've got a different one. And now each time they have somebody, they get a little bit less information, right? So we're trying to have, right at the machine, they can have all that information, the checks and balances that they need to do before they even run the machine, with demonstrations, pictures, videos. And then also with that, even the management is able to look at a dashboard and say, okay, hey, there's a problem here. Is maintenance getting that call? It was snapshotted, it was sent to them. Are they reacting? So it gives them like a green, yellow, red, so that they can see that machine is being utilized. Because what we don't want is 6 months into it, hey, we got the machine and it's really not doing what you said. And it's not really that the machine isn't performing, it's that we hand it off and you can't, I mean, we're not going to wash our hands, and none of us do that, but we're trying to go to that next level, and we think that's critical because machines are only getting more complicated even on the maintenance end. Like, we're even finding that the typical maintenance guy is a little bit outmatched from some of this automation we're putting in, and they need controls information, they need controls, training. There's a lot to it. So for us to be able to give that good handoff so that we can maintain that reputation for how well it runs and give the customer what they want, we're really seeing that that's a major focus, not just building it and coming up with new great ideas, but also how do we hand it off so that they have long-term productivity. So I think that's important.
All right. I love what you said about the maintenance technicians being less capable, because we actually have this point of view that we've already passed peak maintenance technician. Like, the best maintenance technicians our customers will ever hire are in the past. Everyone going forward is getting less and less mechanically inclined, and it makes sense because when we all grew up, we had things we could take apart. We were used to mechanical systems in our life. My son's 12, nothing in his life is able to be disassembled and repaired. So if he becomes a machine technician, he gets thrown into an automated piece of equipment and is not familiar with how to even take something apart easily and put it back together. So we have to think about it from a machine design standpoint. We're trying to deliver higher and higher levels of automation, innovation, and complexity, but at the same time make it be maintainable by a less skilled technician. And
exactly.
That's both the training, but then also there's a lot of opportunities we think in the machine design itself. And do you need a multimeter and a 2-year electrical degree to diagnose a problem, or can the software and the interface guide you through the steps? Just, we're all used to phones, and you plug something into the phone and it tells you is it working or not. And we have servos on the machines that you plug them in, and you have a 14-step process. You need an engineering degree to tune it back in, right? And
exactly.
So we're spending a lot of time thinking through how can we make that as easy as plugging things back into the phones.
Yeah. So that's just that's the focus, right? So that's I think that we've all had that realization, like making all this great machinery and innovation is wonderful, but each time we do it, there's a level of responsibility that we see with the customer. That are they ready for it? How do we get them ready for it? How do we, through design or even with, like I said, additional processes, help them so they can run it every day and understand where to start, how to get there as fast as possible, so that they're getting what they're paying for, which is uptime, right? Uptime in production.
So with automation, complexity is definitely different now. A lot of mechanical systems 25 years ago, they're still mechanical, but now we have PCs that are giving information, collecting data. We have control systems that are controlling servo loops, as you mentioned, and all the complex sensors that come into an array. And the best thing we can do for our customers is try to give them a simple message up to the top display saying, check this area, this is what's going on. And that is like a design in all itself, is to get the right information to your end customer so they can at least intelligently, if they need your help over the phone, give them a good pinpoint direction where to go. So I agree. I mean, before, being a good mechanic was maybe enough. Now you need to be an electrician, you need to be a computer scientist. You hate to say that, but those are the technologies that affect our equipment today.
Yeah, and we see, that there's levels. There was a point where all you needed to be was a mechanic, but we're not at a point yet where all you need to be is an electrical or computer expert. You've got to be both. You've got to have that full range. And we see the same thing when we hire technicians, is finding someone with that complete skill set.
Right.
Because when we send a field service technician out now, he's not only carrying a mechanical toolbox, he's got to be able to get in, troubleshoot, and diagnose within the operating system. And Tim's point with simple error messages that tell the operator, start here. I mean, because people don't know where to start troubleshooting anymore. It's not where you go check for what's loose. You've got to get a lot deeper into it than you used to. So and one of the ways we've tried to, data acquisition and availability of historical data from the machine is all critical, but then what we try to do is we call it training the trainer, because the turnover with the operators has become a real problem. And you could reasonably be in training new operators every few months at most of our customers now. So what we want to do is find those people who've been there, who have a responsibility level, train them. and have them at a point where they're able to train the new people. And then when they do have to lean on us, they're asking the right questions. They're speaking the language that we speak. And that sometimes is the biggest hurdle in troubleshooting remotely. And I think we all have remote access capability on our machines. That's nothing new. But when someone calls you and they want to help troubleshoot, if they're using terminology that we don't use or vice versa, you can get to a standstill real quick. So that training thing has so many levels, so many tiers, and there's a lot of nuance to it that we didn't used to have. So it's a challenge, but I think we've all gotten pretty good at doing that with our equipment. And we try to keep making it as simple as possible for the customer.
A lot of short, quick videos, I think, is what the latest trend for all of us has been, because we've tried to pinpoint the problem, and if it's a high-frequency issue or with training, we try to, I think we could relate with videos today a lot better than we can a textbook or, a white paper.
Exactly, and it's self-serving too. I mean, the customer's always first, but it's self-serving. All of us don't have unlimited technicians at this level either that we can send out as we're growing and selling more equipment and doing more. We don't have unlimited availability of that, so the easier we can help the customer connect that, where we don't have to be sending technicians out for every single thing, that gets tougher and tougher, because we can't just grow those guys on trees either, those people. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. It's a win for the customer, and then it will help us better utilize what we're doing too. So it'll take a lot more level of problem at the customer level they can handle, versus them just calling us going, we don't know, it just doesn't work. So
yeah,
well, we've all got those phone calls many times.
I push on, it doesn't go on, right?
Now, these machinery, the machines can collect a tremendous amount of data that just gives you so much information. What are some of the best ways that you can use that information, and what are some of the best ways that your customers can use that information to enhance their own operations?
One thing that we've seen is there's a lot of data that we had been collecting over time on individual machines, and we could write software that would give you diagnostic capability on the machine and use that data to predict things. But we've had some customers that have invested in connecting all of their machines into centralized databases and dashboards. And our observation is those customers tend to have the highest uptime, because the trend, being able to elevate out of the machine and see what the trends are across machines, often leads us to root cause analysis faster. And we're able to say, oh, this issue is actually common across this platform of machines, and it's something we can fix and prevent from happening. Whereas when we only looked at the individual machines, it was this machine's down, let's fix it. This machine's down, let's fix it. Whereas when you zoom out and can aggregate it, there's a lot more trends that can be extracted.
I mean, we have various platforms. We have simple machines that are just simply, PLCs, and they're not necessarily networked and connected. And then, of course, we have our networked machines that typically have, a industrial PC on them. We make it, first of all, make it very easy to have access to the data points you want. And as Anthony said, the next thing is, all right, bringing it up and making sense of it, so our operators are, I will say, our IG managers, our production managers, our VPs at our companies, they're looking at these trends. If they see downtime in a particular machine, they know they need to go react to it, either balance load, is there an issue with maintenance? So I think it's a lot of level loading. That's how it helps, this data can help their flow through the factory become more efficient, because they can see where maybe there's more congestion, I'll call it, in the flow of their production, and they can level it out. Or we even have tools that give you the ability to see what the demand is up front, and then make that product for the area that's consuming it faster. So you can, we have that vision. For instance, for glass on demand, we call it, but it's being able to look ahead of the glazing lines. And if they're consuming more product and you're going to run out, let's go make some more product for that area first versus another line. So that's how you can use some of this data to help you control your production in a more efficient way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's, we've all for years been collecting data within our machines, but in a lot of cases customers don't access it. And as Anthony said, the people who are aggregating that data and connecting it to a database and then being able to compare across lines for demand, and if there is a consistent downtime issue or a specific part that we see as failing on different machines, it's like we need to look at our design. We've done something wrong. Or maybe not wrong, but we can do it better. So, but without looking at that data, we can count all the cycles we want and see everything, in the machine, but if no one's looking at it, it doesn't help. So finding a way to have a central repository where you can store that and then access it in a logical fashion is really where this industry is going. It's the way we're all going. Our equipment has the ability to do it, and we just need to have the customer with the right tools so they can make the best use of it and keep their machines. They're all over, operating efficiency. That's what everyone wants. It's about uptime. It's not necessarily even about throughput as much as it is about uptime. They want that machine running 95% of the time.
At the end of the day, that's what we all sell is uptime.
Exactly.
We don't sell machines, we sell uptime, because when it's down, it's not even a machine, it's just a paperweight.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
Right, and that I don't want to call it the low-hanging fruit, but you're right. That's the pinpoint, right? That's what all these larger, manufacturers that have heavily invested in automation. That's exactly where they're looking. They're saying, all right, we have all these machines. It's proven. You get cycle time, you get this. But you're right. Now, why aren't I getting that uptime? And you're right. That's the pinpoint. Yeah. Look for those. They need that higher level. They can see the trends, get to it faster, solve them quicker, and keep the uptime. So that's right on the money.
Also, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but I found that some of the plant managers and maintenance teams who've been around for a very long time tend to be jaded on automation, and they know they need it, and their upper management is saying you need less labor, you need more efficiency, but the complexity scares them because automation in the past was less reliable. And I think the data that you're talking about is one thing we're trying to highlight to people is there's a lot more tools now to actually manage these complicated machine tools more easily, and don't be scared of it. Like it's automation has come a long way in 20 years. The machine you buy today is not the one you bought in 2004.
Right, exactly.
It might look the same and kind of feel the same, but the brain of it is much more advanced, and that data is a big part of that, and helps them maintain the higher levels of uptime, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because you're right. You made me think of a scenario with a customer where that's what they were kind of insinuating to us, is that, hey, we think we're having a maintenance group issue, and we're trying to get some more data to kind of be alerted to it, that's where they're struggling when it gets to them. How are they attacking it, or they're attacking it all wrong, but we're not seeing it live, like we're hearing about it the next day or the next shift. So some of that data is pointing it, so even the floor managers and the plant managers and the higher level can see when it gets escalated from operator to maintenance, and then it gets stuck there. Right. And then they're able to kind of attack that and address some of that. You made me think of that point. That's a very good point. That's a big thing that we're seeing as well.
So within the data collection, I mean, every window manufacturer, glass manufacturer has to worry about remakes, because something goes wrong, something even can break, it happens. And not only why did it get remade? That's always the question. We collect that data right away, and then you're going to get Pareto charts out basically showing you the root cause for these remakes. And then the next step is, as a management team, as the manufacturers, how can we prevent those remakes? Is there something going on that we have to correct? But not only are you collecting data, you're getting root causes, and the software can help you determine that trend right away.
Yeah, it's easy to say, oh, the line was down, but why?
Yeah.
Was it because of a lack of response?
Yeah.
Was it because they didn't have a part in stock? Was it because the machine was just not having a good day? You need to be able to track and find those root causes. And there usually is some consistency to why things go down. But it's not always easy to recognize.
You got to dig it out.
Yeah.
We've also had to change a lot of our interfaces and safety systems to make sure that the data we were collecting was usable.
Yep.
An example is e-stop data, where if they're using the e-stop to go out for a cigarette break, now the e-stop data they're aggregating at the corporate level, they're like, well, your machines are always getting e-stopped. And as we dig in, it's like, well, it's because the operator uses it to go away. So we've had to design a more obvious way for the operator to pause the machine to do things. And it's been a great opportunity for us, though, I think, working with our customers. And again, the consultative approach we were talking about, there's a lot of back and forth. I think all of our teams are very intertwined with the customers to try and understand how are you using this, where are these issues coming up, and how can we make the product capture the data that will actually be useful for you.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. Not only are we machine manufacturers, we're process experts now.
Yes.
Right? We have to put ourselves in between our machines and say, what happens? Where's the flow of product from raw material to the shipment? And I think that's what is different in automation. You're just not doing one step. You're linking it all together.
Yeah.
You have to do it all. One of the other things that I'm hearing from you all a lot is that the industry needs to be very flexible, that manufacturers are very flexible. Tim, how is machinery able to address some of the flexibility needs of the customers?
Well, a couple examples that come to mind is, assets in automation are becoming more expensive, so they want to see them be more universal and utilized. And those assets are no longer, a 3 to 5 year play. Many times we see these assets being used for 15 years. As manufacturers, certainly we want to sell you new machines all the time, but the point is everyone has limited capital resources and they got to use it wisely in order to drive their bottom line. For us, it's running different materials through the same machine, and you could have different cost points of the good, better, best. That's something we did bring to the show this year with our spacer system with Intercept. Flexibility, I think one thing is being able to run 4 or 5, we've seen up to 35 different window lines go across the same machine, and we have to be able to recognize them and process them off the same machine. So the complexity goes up with the flexibility too, but it's what our customers want in order to really just establish good paybacks on that asset. They don't want to be super specialized where it's only good for one line.
We're also seeing customers, they're expanding their product offerings, and so they're making more windows, but there's more variety in what they're making. Yep. So whereas 20 years ago, we could sell them a dedicated piece of equipment and 80% of their volume was 2 window systems, and it was easy. They were just cranking those out in different sizes. Now they have 5 different versions of that with different finishes and slight differences to the profile to meet variations in local jurisdictions and what have you. And what we're also seeing is when they add these automated tools, they're like, well, we'd love to have the automation, but we want one piece of equipment that we can just put in plants and not have to predict in advance what it's going to do, right? And so that's a trend we think is going to keep accelerating, where especially with the consolidation in our customer base, they want the same equipment stack in the West Coast as they have in the Midwest and in the East, but they make completely different windows. And so they want the flexible piece of equipment that can work across all, because then if one plant is slow, they can make windows in that plant to support the one that's really busy. Their businesses, our customers' businesses, are actually a lot more flexible than they used to be, and so we have to meet that need.
Yeah, and that's something we all fight, and I think I think probably Tim and Brian have seen it longer with the glass and the spacer, where you've got multiple products going through the same line. With our side on the PVC, we see, that there's a couple different kinds of customers. You've got the guy who's making new construction windows. He's going to make 500 of this window every day, and they're all going to be the same. And he wants a machine that's efficient for that and gets him his throughput. And then in that same building, he may have a line where he runs 4 or 5 different products, and he wants to be able to fabricate those. And it creates 2 different challenges on the same machine. He wants 2 different concepts, and it's the same machine, but it's got to be thought out, and the fabrication's got to be designed differently. And we have to be able to cater to both those scenarios, because it used to be you had guys who did nothing but new construction and guys who did nothing but high-end replacement, but now it's all in the same building. And so we've got to, they want to be able to go from this line to that line and run this product over here even though it's not what the line was bought for. So, to Anthony's point, it's created a lot of challenges, and I'll say the saws are the most difficult. From our side, the welding and cleaning is never as big an issue, but the cutting and fabrication is where we really have to rethink the way we do things and try to get better all the time.
Now, at some point, I've talked with all of you about innovation at different points in the past. And Anthony, one of the really cool things that we've talked about that in particular is your digital twin technology. Can you talk about how that's advancing the industry?
Sure. So a few years ago, we identified that for us, one of the biggest bottlenecks in producing machinery faster was we had to build the machine to be able to program it. And a lot of the speed increases, especially with the advances in the automated control systems, was in the programming. And so we invested in developing digital twins, which are a digital mirror of our machine, and we run it in an NVIDIA physics-enabled virtual environment, and we can simulate the machine 100% virtually without having the real machine. And it's been an amazing way to develop products for us, because it's actually, our machine is they're so big sometimes, even making a small change and figuring out, can we move this tool out of the way faster and get this tool in? It's very difficult to do in the physical world. In the virtual world, it's very easy. And what we're seeing and where we envision this going is being able to link multiple of our machines together and actually show the customer, when they ask us how many can it produce in this line, we can run a simulation and actually show them. And so, the ability for the customer to see that, and before they make a multi-million-dollar investment in automation, be able to see, okay, it's not just you telling me you're going to deliver this. I can see it in a 3D representation, and I can, time lapse it and see the windows kind of coming out the other side. We think there's a lot of value to that, and it really leverages, the tools that we're using literally did not exist 3 years ago for companies of our scale. I'm sure automotive companies and things like that could use it, but now the costs of that technology have come down so much, and it's so accessible. We're able to use it within our engineering team, and we're really excited to keep leaning on that going forward.
Well, thank you all so much for taking the time out of your show to come talk with us. I really appreciate it, and I hope you all had a wonderful GlassBuild. I look forward to continuing our conversations.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thanks, Laura. I appreciate the chance to be a part of it.
Of course. All right. And that wraps up this episode of WindowCast and GlassCast, live from GlassBuild America in Orlando. Once again, thank you to series sponsors Dow and Lansing Building Products for sponsoring the Live at GlassBuild podcast stage. Don't forget to subscribe to NGA's YouTube channel and follow WindowCast and GlassCast wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Laurie Cowan. Until next time.